This is easy, since our son's bar mitzvah is 26 in another week. So,
Wow.
Wow, that's right. That's a good question.
How do you fit the bass in your car to get back and forth?
So when we go car shopping, we always bring the bass.
I can say something about that though, because I used to play the double bass in addition to, and I had for a short time in high school, I was gifted a Honda Civic. Now, not a Honda Civic like we have today, like a real 80s Honda Civic hatchback. And I got the double bass in the hatchback without any problem. So the problem with the Civic was not that you couldn't fit the bass in there, you just couldn't put anything else in.
Any other questions for now?
You guys are married?
No. Oh, those guys.
And you guys are married? Are you two married, the drummer and the keyboard?
Anyone else married to each other? Who schleps the bass? The bass player.
The bass player schleps the bass. All right.
Great.
So I wanted to read just one today when I don't usually get to chant this portion of the Torah in the synagogue because there's a guy in my other congregation who loves this portion and always does it. So I had the chance today because he wasn't there to learn it, and I came across this particular line which I really love. So I'll chant it for you in Hebrew and then translate it, or I'll translate it first. This is not from the portion I was going to read to you, but it's so lovely I wanted to read it. And it says, so the setup is that Moses, right before he dies, gives a series of blessings to all of the different tribes of the Israelites. And so it goes through, of this one he says this, of this one he says this, and some of them are very short. One of them he says they're happy in their tents. That's it. Boy, they really made an impression on Moses. They're happy in their tents. All right. But this one of Benjamin, he said, beloved of the Lord, he rests securely beside him. It's not entirely clear, which he is which he is which there. Here, though it is, ever does he protect him as he rests between his shoulders. I love that image, right, of God, the protector, sort of always being right with us, right between our shoulders, right, sort of in our heads. So this is how it sounds in Hebrew. Living Yamin Amaha, Yedid Adonai, Yishkon Lavetzach Alav, Kofeh Alav Kol Hayom, Uven Ktefav Shachem. All right, so without further ado, I think I'll read the very last chapter of the Torah, and then we will go backwards from there. Between Julia and me, we'll go backwards from there with help from you, I hope.
And maybe before you read, people who want the ending blessing, you can do a little sign.
So I thought I would read
Great. Okay.
this. Well, no, but I can be convinced. I love this idea. If you want a blessing for the ending of something, maybe like the ending of this pandemic or something like that. But if you would like a blessing for the ending of something, doesn't matter what it is, feel free to stand now if you feel comfortable standing. If you don't feel comfortable standing, it's completely fine. And then I will read this. It's not a very long passage, and then Julia will. Okay. All right. Moses went up from the steppes of Moab to Mount Nebo to the summit of Pisgah opposite Jericho. And Adonai showed him the whole land, Gilad as far as Dan, all Naphtali, the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, the whole land of Judah as far as the western sea, the Negev and the plain, the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees, as far as Zoar. And Adonai said to him, this is the land of which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will assign it to your offspring. I have let you see it with your own eyes, but you shall not cross there. So Moses, the servant of Adonai, died there in the land of Moab at the command of Adonai. God buried him in the valley of the land of Moab near Beit Peor, and no one knows his burial place to this day. Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eyes were undimmed and his vigor unabated. And the Israelites bewailed Moses in the steppes of Moab for 30 days. The period of wailing and mourning for Moses came to an end. Now Joshua, the son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom, because Moses had laid his hands upon him. And the Israelites heeded him, doing as the Lord had commanded Moses. Never again did there arise in Israel a prophet like Moses, whom Adonai singled out face to face, for the various signs and portents that Adonai sent him to display in the land of Egypt against Pharaoh and all his courtiers and his whole country, and for the great might and awesome power that Moses displayed before all of Israel.
So if you would like a blessing about ending and letting go, I invite you to either stand up or sort of set an intention in your heart in this moment as I give a blessing. So for all of those here, we say, may the source of blessing, who blessed all of our ancestors who came before us, continue to bless those of you today who are in need of letting go, of shedding protective skins that are no longer serving you, of letting water wash away what needs to be taken away from you so that you have a chance to flourish and feel abundant in this world. And may all the endings that come your way be openings of new beginnings. May you feel the courage to let go of what you need to let go of and find strength in your community, in your friends here tonight, in your family, in your loved ones, and in this world that continues to change and offer new blessings every day.
Amen.
That's lovely.
I think after that, all we can have is song.
One and two and one and two.
So that was super appropriate because the confusion of beginnings and endings is, you know, it's just the way it works for around us. All right, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we're going to try to do is we have a list that we did extensive research. But we have a list of things that happened in the book of Deuteronomy. But we thought it would be much more fun to ask the crowd here what happened in the book of Deuteronomy and see what this crew comes up with. So Julia has the microphone, and she can go around to various people who have ideas about what happened in Deuteronomy.
And I'm going to call and say in a second, but also if you were listening to Rabbi Jim read the end of Deuteronomy a few minutes ago, you might have some ideas.
Ah, right.
Say, you want to say anything?
Moses talks to all the Israelites and he reiterates what happened.
Yeah.
He tells what God had done and what they had been through and where they were, and what he reiterates like it's a synopsis. Is that the right word?
Good word, yeah.
Synopsis of the Torah.
Great. Thank you.
And over here.
Moses passes the torch, as it be, from himself to Joshua,
Right.
and says, Hazak, amen.
What is that?
Bar mitzvah. He's strong and of good courage. Right.
Joshua said he's strong enough with courage there.
It happens also in the next book too, yeah. But it starts earlier.
Who is he talking to? This part.
Who is he talking, who is Joshua talking
I
to?
think God says it.
Or God says it,
I'll
God says
I'll
it,
check that out. That's a great question.
or Moses says it to Joshua?
But once Moses is dead, he doesn't come back from the dead to tell Joshua that. So let me see. I think
Great.
it's God says that. but let me
Rabbi
see.
Jim is looking into it.
Maybe that he does say.
He does say it, you're right. Great. Anyone remember anything else? I know we're putting you on the spot here, this hard test.
You get the laws.
The laws, great.
And there's a very important line that happens in the book of Deuteronomy. Does anyone, we say it every day a couple of times. We're supposed to say it when we wake up in the morning, say it when we go to bed at night. The Shema, right? Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, right? That comes straight from the book of Deuteronomy. Oh, here it comes. All right. So actually it is God who says it to Joshua. God says, after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' attendant, my servant Moses is dead. Prepare to cross the Jordan together with all the people into the land that I'm giving the Israelites, so on and so forth and so on. Be strong and resolute. Right? Chazak v'emetz, this is how they translate it here. For you shall apportion to this people the land that I swore to their fathers to assign to them. But you must be very strong and resolute. So it gets repeated a lot of times. Right? I think in order to live, right, in order to go into new beginnings, you need to be strong and resolute. It's sort of a basic.
You want to add anything else for Deuteronomy before we
Oh,
keep going backwards?
Any other ideas what happened to Deuteronomy? Let's see, is there anything good here?
Well, I was thinking about sort of something that they mentioned, that the 10 Commandments get repeated. We see them twice in the Torah. Once happens in Deuteronomy. I mean, Moses dies at the end, which we saw. I think those are the main hits.
Yeah, I mean, and just noticing here which I think is interesting is Moses finishes writing the Torah, right? Of course, you know, what constitutes the Torah, right? What did he write? So such a wonderful question. We won't get into it now. But did he actually just write down that scroll? And what about when he was dead? Did he write that too? It's very confusing what, you know, to say that Moses finished writing the Torah in the Torah. So very interesting set of questions. All right.
Indeed.
Indeed. All right. So I think we need another song before we get to the book of Numbers.
Question. You got it?
Start playing.
1, 2, 1, 2.
next book is the Midbar. What does the Midbar mean? In the desert, in the wilderness, right? It has a much less exciting name in English. We call it the book of Numbers, because there's a big census at the beginning of the book of Numbers. But really, it's about being in the wilderness, right? A lot of less than happy stuff happens in the book of Numbers, but there's also some very beautiful passages. All right, so who knows anything that happens in the book of Numbers?
You've made it through one test. You only have 4 left.
They take census, don't they?
They do take a census right at the beginning. Exactly, they take a census and they count up 600,000 something Israelites, just the men. Wait, it's like bigger than the city of Boston. Okay, all right then, here we go.
I have one story that I love that happens in Numbers is our like moment of feminism in the Torah,
Right.
which is the daughters of Zelophehad, who are these 5 daughters who want to inherit their dad's lands. And so they go before Moses and they say, it's not fair that because we don't have any brothers, we're going to lose all our land. And then Moses is like, I don't know what to do. And so he talks to God and God says, they can have the land.
Yay.
So that's those few verses.
There's a few verses, there's a lot of other verses, that are not so good, but, all right, so, one of the other things that happens in the book of Numbers is that that there's a king named Balak who wants to curse the Israelites, so he sends Bil'am, a sort of a soothsayer / magician, to curse the Israelites, and God won't let it happen. And so the song that Jews sing when they come into the synagogue in the morning, it's called Ma Tohu Ohalecha Yaakov Mishkanetecha Yisrael. How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your tents, right, O Israel. That actually comes from this magician who was trying to do evil to the Israelites. So,
And there's a talking donkey.
there is a talking donkey. I almost forgot. How could you forget about the talking donkey in a book that is so full of crazy, unhappy things, right? There's actually a talking donkey, and anyone who says that there's no humor in the Torah has not read about the talking donkey. Another thing that happens, a very sad thing that happens in the book of Numbers, right, is that we have the story of the 12 spies, right? Moses sends the spies to go check out the promised land. 10 of them come back and say, "Oi, there are giants there. We're never going to be able to take over that land." The 2 of them who say, "Oh, it's a great land. We should definitely go." Who are those 2? Caleb and Joshua. Right? So those are the only 2 people of that generation who get to enter the land. At least of the men. We don't know about the women necessarily, right? But those are the only 2 guys that get to go across and be part of the next generation.
Is that when they bring back the fruit?
Yes, right. Right, they bring back the giant fruit, the giant grapes. And like each grape requires, they require like a rickshaw to carry the grapes. Each grape is huge.
No wonder they felt like grasshoppers.
Of course, the grapes were too big. All right, did you have a hand up? No, okay. All right.
You're welcome to answer any
Hey,
questions.
the band is definitely welcome to play the game. Of what happens in the Torah?
Such a fun game.
All right. So I think that's done. There's other things that happen in the book of Numbers, but
We have all year to get to it.
exactly, we'll have another chance. That's a good thing, right? Every year we get to read it again, so we'll have another chance. All right. Guess what?
All right, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2.
get to the book before that one, I just remembered that we forgot to talk about the priestly blessing, which happens in the book of Numbers. And so, in the priestly blessing, and one of the lovely things about our tradition is that when we had the catastrophe of the destruction of the temple, right, and the accustomed way that Israelites had of connecting to God was gone, right, the way that the rabbis decided to manage that situation was instead of having priests who were in charge of making that connection with God, right, that became everybody's job. Right? So in a sense, we became literally, as it says in the Torah, a nation of priests, right? Everyone is responsible for bringing God's blessing into the world. And so one of the things that we do is we actually use the priestly blessing. And if you ever were a child in a Jewish home that was somewhat observant, or if you had kids and you were somewhat observant on Friday nights, one of the things that many Jews do on Friday nights is say the priestly blessing to their children or to one another. So I'll just read it to you. So the Lord told Moses, speak to Aaron and his sons. Thus shall you bless the people of Israel. Say to them, Adonai bless you and protect you. Adonai deal kindly and graciously with you. Adonai bestow God's favor upon you and grant you peace. And then thus they shall link my name with the people of Israel, and I will bless them. So the part that we use as the blessing is just the three. It's almost like a haiku, 5, 7, and 9 syllables in a row. It goes like this: Yevarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yikuneka, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Right. So that after the music of Numbers is the book of Numbers. So now we have the book of Vayikra, which in English is called the book of Leviticus. All right. So what happens in the book of Leviticus?
Any guesses?
Ten Commandments, the law.
10 Commandments?
No 10 Commandments. No, it's a good guess.
All kinds of other laws.
Lots of laws, but not the 10 Commandments. Right. There's two primary sets of laws that we get in the book of Leviticus. So maybe
Other thoughts? This might not be what you're asking, Rabbi Jim, but I really loved in the book of Leviticus, we had a very detailed description of Aaron, the high priest, his outfit. We had to hear all of that.
Oh, that's
His jewelry and his whole getup.
that is awesome. And when it says you should be a nation of priests, like everyone should dress like Aaron.
So take out your white linen.
Exactly. And you're a foe.
Yeah, all kinds of jewels.
No, I had in mind two different kinds of laws. The first one is a lot of laws having to do with the sacrificial system, right? A lot of laws having to do with how do we repair the relationship with God when something goes wrong, right? When we make a mistake, when we make some sort of mistake and the relationship with God goes sideways, how do we bring it back into alignment? Right? And another big part of it is what's called the holiness code. Right? God is holy, God says, and thus you should be holy. Right? And what is one of the most important? Everyone knows this. We very often struggle to do this for a variety of reasons, but we should all right? You should love your neighbor as you love yourself. Wait, first of all, if you don't love yourself, that might be a problem. Right? But even if you do love yourself, sometimes it's a problem to love your neighbor as you love yourself. But we all kind of maybe have a tendency to look to ourselves before we look to other people. So that's a big part of it, right? A lot of different laws have to do that. Go ahead.
Is the laws of kashrut in Leviticus?
Yep. They are in two places, in Leviticus and Deuteronomy at least. There may be other places, but definitely in the book. And so sometimes I actually heard a couple of. Has anyone ever heard All Revved Up on the radio with Jim and Marjorie on WTBH? They have Irene Monroe and Emmett Price, I think was his last name. I'm sorry if I'm getting that wrong. But they're two African-American preachers. And they were talking about the book of Leviticus the other day, because they were saying that it's the, for evangelical Christians, it's like the health section of the, of the Torah, because it's where all the dietary restrictions are. So yes, the dietary restrictions are in there. Of course, the relationship between what we see in the Bible and what counts as kashrut today, right? They're very different, right? For a bunch of reasons, right? And not least of all is that some of the things that we're allowed to eat or not allowed to eat, we have no idea what they actually are anymore. So it's a little hard to know some of the species of animals. Anything else that happens in blood? Fancy list here. Oh, yes, a very important thing that happens, right, is we get the ritual that we read every year on Yom Kippur, right? It's called the scapegoat ritual, right? Where we take two goats, right? One of them is sacrificed just as a connection between God and the Israelites, as it normally would, and the other one is sort of given all the sins, right, of the community and sent out into the wilderness, where we get this idea of the scapegoat, right? We do it today. We don't do it with goats. We do it with little pieces of bread that we throw in the water. All right. Anything else? Yeah, go ahead, Faye.
This is just a little interesting note. You know, a giraffe is kosher.
Really?
They chew their cud and they have cloven hooves. But I read it's difficult for a slaughterer to use a giraffe to slaughter it, which I'm not for anyway, because the neck is so long they wouldn't know where to cut.
Well.
Hey, you are a fountain. No pun intended. But I wouldn't want to eat a giraffe even if it were
I
kosher.
wouldn't want to eat chicken.
On that lovely note, maybe we'll have another song.
Another song. This is about the kosher giraffe.
Save the giraffe.
What did you say?
Save the
giraffe. Save the kosher giraffe. All right, so now we're moving back. And now we're in the book of Shemot, like the book of the names, otherwise known in English as the book of Exodus. So the name kind of gives away the main plot. right? What happens in the book of Exodus? The Exodus happens in the book of Exodus.
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah, I would say this is probably the book it's hardest to try and not go on and on. with all
Right,
the
exactly.
things
There's
that
so many things happen in the book of Exodus. Right, so who wants to take a stab at one or two of the things that happen? Yeah, please.
I know some folks here know some Exodus things. I mean, think about if you ever celebrate Passover. Some things happen that we remember during the Passover Seder.
You bake unleavened bread. You bake unleavened bread,
There we go.
And why do we bake unleavened bread?
because we didn't have time to let it rise.
Other thoughts about Exodus? Anything that happened?
Isn't that when Moses confronted Pharaoh?
Great. When Moses confronted Pharaoh, all the plagues. Excellent.
Right, and we hear about, and it's interesting, right, that at the very end of Deuteronomy, that's what it ends on. What's the big end of Deuteronomy? It's all about how Moses was shown to be the great prophet because he was the one that heard from God about all the things that were going to happen in Egypt.
The Exodus,
Yeah.
the plagues,
The
and the
plagues.
parting of the Dead Sea.
That's right.
And how about the founding, the origin of Moses in the bulrushes?
Oh,
The
very
bulrushes
nice.
and the Pharaoh's daughter raising him.
Yep.
He smote someone from the household and had to run away.
Yeah, see, once we get
Once
going,
we get
hard
going,
to stop.
there's so much, yeah.
Smote is a great word.
And who watched Moses as after he was put in the little? Who watched Moses as he was put in the little ark? Right, it's the same word actually.
Eleanor got it.
Miriam, right? Miriam, Moses' sister, Aaron's sister, the prophetess, right? Very important figure for us in Judaism. All right. Oh, wait. Other things that happened. Someone wanted it to. Yeah, go ahead.
The 12 sons of Jacob.
The Joseph and his brothers.
Joseph and his brothers. That's a little
Brother Jacob-
earlier.
Brother Jacob had 12 sons.
Right. So that's a little earlier. That's in the book of Genesis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, they become the 12. Yes, right. So the 12 sons of Israel get transformed. Shirley is exactly right. One of the interesting things about the book of Exodus, right, is when we talk about Genesis, right, we'll talk about a family story. It's Jacob and his sons. Right, when we get to the book of Exodus, it's already not a family anymore, right? It's already a nation. Exactly.
The golden calf.
Oh, the golden calf. Or heartbreaking. Moses is so upset. What does he do when he hears about the golden calf? He just got the tablets. He's coming. He's so excited. He's going to show the Israelites, look what I got. Hey, look what you're doing. All right. But right before all of that, there was something very exciting. Faye wanted it to happen in the book of Leviticus, but it actually happened in the book of Exodus. The Ten Commandments. We go up onto the mountain and we hear that. And how much of the Ten Commandments, according to the rabbis, did the Israelites actually hear? Does anyone know how much we heard on the mountain? Supposedly, we were so scared, all we could manage was the first letter. And what was the first letter? The first letter was an aleph. And what sound does an aleph make? No sound.
No.
So we couldn't hear anything. We were too freaked out. All right.
There's so much more.
I know. Oh, the other characters that I really want to make a point of mentioning, right? Who are the heroes of the first chapter of the book of Exodus? Right? It's not Moses.
This is our other feminist.
It's
moment
not
in the
Aaron.
Torah.
Right? It's certainly not the father of Moses. Right?
Midwives?
The midwives. It's Shifra and Puah. Right? Who are the ones who stand up to Pharaoh and they say, we are not going to kill the Israelite boys. Right? And when Pharaoh says, ladies, you're supposed to be killing all these Israelite boys, the Shifra and Pu, what they say to Moses, what they say to Pharaoh? Oi, we would do it, Pharaoh, we would kill them, but these Israelite women, they're so spry. They give birth and they run away, they won't let us do it.
Great. I think we're ready for
We're
another
ready
song.
for- All right, this one is called Shifra and Pua Waltz. I hope it's a waltz. No, it's the Shifra and Pura Mazurka.
Right.
So I realized that our job tonight really is to give you new titles for all of your children. All right, so we've reached the book of Bereshit, book of Genesis, right? Another book where there's an awful lot that happens. We probably want, Julia and I were chatting up here about all the things we didn't talk about in the book of Exodus, but we decided, as she put it, we're going to draw the line somewhere and not talk about all the things we didn't talk about. So, but in the book of Genesis, what happens in the book of Genesis?
Creation.
Creation.
Excellent. And then what?
Wow.
Say that again.
The flood?
The
The
flood.
flood,
I forgot all about the flood. That was not on my page.
Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden.
Adam
Adam
and
and Eve
Eve.
in the Garden of Eden, right? And so the creation of the world and then the creation of people, right? Yeah.
Cain and Abel. Yep.
The naming, oh, I love that. That's one of my
Excellent.
favorite things. Yeah.
Say that again, Ellen. Yeah.
The big job to name all those animals. And the plants too.
Day of rest,
Oh,
Shabbat.
right,
gets
Shabbat
created.
happens, right?
Abraham.
Abraham, right? You know, the Ivri, Abraham HaIvri, right? The one who crosses over the boundaries, right?
They come in, Joseph. What are some stories about any of these characters? Joseph, Jacob, Abraham, Isaac.
Joseph was sold. Wait.
Joseph was sold into slavery.
In the
Covenants, great.
The rainbow.
The rainbow. The rainbow comes after the flood.
Isaac was not sacrificed.
Isaac was not sacrificed, but almost sacrificed.
And Abraham took another wife, Hagar, and had Ishmael. And Sarah threw them both out into the desert.
Right? Like that's the story that we read on Rosh Hashanah, right? The story of this, of the feud, kind of the conflict between Hagar and Sarah. And also between Sarah and Abraham. All right, let's see.
And Jacob marries Leah and then Rachel, or not
Falls in
Jacob,
love with
Isaac.
Rachel, right?
Yes,
No, Jacob.
Jacob.
Jacob,
I missed.
yeah, Jacob falls in love with Rachel at the well, right? We learned about that today, in the prayer for rain, right? Because they need each other near the water, the well of the water. But Laban, Rachel's father, tricks Jacob, right? And substitutes Leah. And so he ends up with 2 wives. Poor guy.
And then the second Jacob, tricked his father.
Yep, and Jacob and Esau. Jacob
Oh,
tricked his
right.
father. He put on goat skin gloves and pretended he was his hairy brother
That's
to
right.
get the special blessing.
But who thought of that plan?
The
The mother, Rebecca, right? Like Jacob is a sly, deceiving guy, but he's not that sly. It took Rebecca to come up with that plan.
Lots of great functional stories.
Exactly.
I have a little trick to help us remember the books. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The trick is if the general electric lights never dim.
Could everyone hear what Kay said?
I never forgot.
General Electric lights never
That's
dim.
brilliant. All right, great. So we're gonna end. Do you want to read this one? Okay. We're gonna end by reading the first chapter of Genesis, the first chapter of Bereshit, right? With this wonderfully orderly idea of creation, right? Divided into 6 days. And how does God create everything?
He speaks.
God talks, right?
Word.
God speaks and the world comes into being, right? Which is a reminder, right, of how much constructive stuff we can do with our words, but also how much just destructive stuff we can do with our words. Go ahead, Jeannie.
Like, in the beginning, what's the word? It's not good.
In the beginning, what is the word is from the book of John, right? The gospel, according to John, says in the beginning was the word. Exactly. So the Christians, right? The Christian Bible is also plays with this idea, right, of language being incredibly powerful. Although I think they have more, there's a little bit more to it. I think the gospel of John, but that's
That's what they say, like slang says, it's like you can have a pill and break it and all the feathers come out, you can't gather them all up.
What was the first part, Eleanor? What was like the pillow with the feathers?
It's like gossip or slander or something.
Oh, right.
You're talking about the word.
Lashon Hara.
Lashon Hara,
Yeah.
exactly. Lashon Hara is like it's like a feather pillow that you break. You can't once it's out, you can't put it all back in again. All right. So Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. When God, right, began to create heaven and earth, the earth being unformed and void, with darkness over the surface of the deep, and a wind from God sweeping over the water, God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, a first day. Right? So right from the very beginning of the Torah, right, we start with the evening and we move to the morning, right? So that's why we begin our holidays always on the evening of the. And God said, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the water, that it may separate water from water." God made the expanse, and it separated the water which was below the expanse from the water which was above the expanse, and it was so. God called the expanse sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, a second day. God said, "Let the water below the sky be gathered into one area, that the dry land may appear," and so it was. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering of waters God called seas. And God saw this was good. And God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, seed-bearing plants, fruit trees of every kind on earth that bear fruit with a seed in it." And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, seed-bearing plants of every kind, and trees of every kind bearing fruit with the seed in it. And God saw that this was good, and there was evening, and there was morning, a third day. God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate day from night, They shall serve as signs for the set times, the days and the years, and they shall serve as lights in the expanse of the sky to shine upon the earth. And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to dominate the day, and the lesser light to dominate the night, and the stars. And God set them in the expanse of the sky to shine upon the earth, to dominate the sky, the day and night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that this was good, and there was evening, and there was morning, a fourth day. God said, let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures and birds that fly up above the earth across the expanse of the sky. God created the great sea monsters and all the living creatures of every kind that creep, which the waters brought forth in swarms, and all the winged birds of every kind. And God saw that this was good. God blessed them. And what did God say to them? Be fruitful and multiply, right? The first commandment in the Torah, be fruitful and multiply, right? Be fruitful and increase, fill the waters of the sea, and let the birds increase on the earth. And there was evening and there was morning, a fifth day. And God said, let the earth bring forth every kind of living creature, cattle, creeping things, and wild beasts of every kind. And it was so. God made wild beasts of every kind, and cattle of every kind, and all kinds of creeping things of the earth. And God saw that this was good. And God said, let us make people, let us make a person, right? Adam, in our image after our likeness. They shall rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the cattle of the whole earth, and all the creeping things that creep on earth. That was a bit of wishful thinking. And God created the person in God's image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fertile and multiply. Fill the earth and master it, and rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and all the living things that creep on earth. God said, see, I give you every seed-bearing plant that is upon all the earth, and every tree that has seed-bearing fruit, and they shall be yours for food. Right? Notice that God does not give anybody meat to eat in the Garden of Eden. Right? That comes after the flood. God said, see, I give you every seed-bearing plant that is upon all the earth, and every tree that has seed-bearing fruit, they shall be yours for food, and to all the animals on land, and to all the birds of the sky, and to everything that creeps on the earth, in which there is the breath of life, I give all the green plants for food. And it was so. And God saw all that God had made, and found it very good, very good. That he made tov me'od, not just good, but very good. And there was evening and there was morning the sixth day. And then finally, the seventh day, right, the heaven and the earth were finished in all their array. On the seventh day, God finished the work that God had been doing, and God ceased on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work of creation that God had done. And there's actually a little bit of a story about this line. Right, that when it says "Ivo Shabbat Nikol Lachto Asher Bara Elohim La'asot," right? If you translate that literally, and God ceased from all the work that God had created yet to do. Right, so there's still more work to be done, but it's Shabbos, so you take a break. And what are you going to do on Sunday? Start working again. Right, so there's always more to do with creation. Right, even though it says the work of creation is finished, the work of creation is never finished. Right? God did God's part in 6 days, rested on the seventh day. Now it's our turn. We gotta finish with that. All right. So blessing and then tunes.
Wonderful. So we just heard so much about all that can come when you start with some tohu vavohu, some void and chaos and void. So for anyone here who feels in need of a blessing about new beginnings and being able to start something new, I invite you to intend your heart into this blessing, and I offer it for you. So, may the one who blessed our ancestors, the source of life, continue to support each of us with nourishment and vivaciousness so that we can continue to move forward into the unknown, into these new beginnings, even though the world may seem full of uncertainty and chaos and darkness, may we follow in the paths of the Divine One and find our way forward to create what needs to be created, to find the strength to be a seed that's able to break through its husk and grow strong into the light, and then receive that light and that rain and the nutrients from the soil to move forward in whatever way we need to. May these new beginnings continue to nourish us and to guide us forward. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. All right.
Amen.
Beautiful blessings for all of you. Beautiful. I can't make blessings like that. So I'm gonna let Julia just be the blessing person. But just wishing you all a wonderful rest of the holiday, much joy and many, I hope, very good memories from this evening and many more to come. So please, thank you. This is now the Bereshit rag.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you very much to Two Clubs for Comfort. Thank you. And now it's your turn. You can hold the Torah now. You get a chance to hold the Torah and have a.
Torah in one hand.
With a clarinet. Torah and clarinet. Brilliant. Awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So
You guys can keep on playing. No reason to stop except.
You're welcome.
What? All right. Get out of your way.
One, two, three.
Thank you.
Party's over.
Why not? Your soul sisters, even if you're not.
Pleasure. Thanks for having us.
So lovely. Yeah, thank
Our favorites.
you. It was so much fun.
And you never know when he's gonna stop.